January 1st, 1945, 8 a.m. Across dozens of airfields scattered through Germany and the Low Countries, nearly 900 German fighters rumble awake. Messerschmitt 109s, Focke-Wulf 190s, even a handful of the new jet-powered Me-262s. This is the largest assembly of Luftwaffe fighters since the Battle of Britain. Their mission, Operation Bodenplatte, a massive low-level strike against Allied airfields in Belgium and the Netherlands. The goal is brutally straightforward: catch the enemy on the ground, burn their aircraft before they can take off, cripple Allied air power in a single morning. And on paper, it should have worked. The Allies weren't expecting anything like this. Pilots were still shaking off New Year's Eve celebrations, and many airfields were operating with skeleton crews. For the first time in months, the Germans had achieved something precious: operational surprise. 3 hours later, the Luftwaffe would lose more than 300 aircraft and 237 pilots, not 237 casualties. 237 pilots dead, missing, or captured. Many were irreplaceable veterans who had been flying since 1940. Operation Bodenplatte ended up destroying the Luftwaffe more effectively than any Allied action ever could. But to understand how this catastrophe happened, we have to go back to why it was attempted at all. By January 1945, the Luftwaffe was a hollow echo of its former self. They were losing pilots faster than they could train them. Aviation fuel was so scarce that new flyers often graduated with under 100 flight hours, compared to over 400 hours for Allied pilots. Meanwhile, on the ground, Hitler's last great gamble, the Battle of the Bulge, was collapsing. German forces desperately needed air cover, but every time the Luftwaffe climbed into the sky, they were shredded by American Mustangs and British Spitfires. Something drastic had to be done. The solution came from General Dietrich Peltz. His logic was brutal and simple: if we can't beat them in the air, then destroy them before they leave the ground. One massive blow to wipe out hundreds of Allied aircraft at once, reset the equation, and keep the Ardennes offensive alive. On paper, it made sense. History proved it could work. Pearl Harbor, the 6-Day War. Catch an air force on the ground and you can gut it in hours. Bodenplatte required absolute secrecy. It was so secret that pilots didn't receive their targets until the night before. It was so secret that German anti-aircraft units, the flak gunners who protected German-held territory, were not told anything at all. Read that again. Hundreds of friendly aircraft would be flying low over German positions on New Year's morning, and the flak crews had no idea. Now picture this: 900 fighters skim across German-held Belgium at treetop height. Flak gunners look up and see wave after wave of aircraft, exactly how an Allied strike would look. They do what they are trained to do. They open fire. German flak guns shoot down German fighters. Not a handful. Dozens. Some historians argue flak destroyed more Luftwaffe aircraft that morning than the Allies did. Veteran aces who had survived years of combat were killed by their own side before they even reached their targets. And that was only the beginning. At some airfields, the strike was devastating. At Eindhoven, rows of Typhoons and Spitfires were caught lined up on the tarmac. Over 100 Allied aircraft destroyed in minutes. Elsewhere, surprise was total, and the Germans had time to strafe at will. But the planners missed one critical reality. The Allies could replace aircraft. Germany could not replace pilots. Most Allied aircraft destroyed were sitting empty. Pilots were in their bunk rooms, not in cockpits. Factories in the United States and Britain were pumping out fighters faster than they could be shipped to Europe. By contrast, every Luftwaffe pilot lost represented years of training and experience that Germany could never get back. The Luftwaffe lost around 304 aircraft, 237 pilots, killed, captured, or missing, 19 unit commanders, including 3 Geschwader Kommandoren, equivalent to Allied wing commanders. These were men who had fought through Britain, Russia, North Africa. In 3 hours, nearly 20 of them were gone. Allied losses, 465 aircraft, destroyed or damaged, 70 pilots killed. The difference is everything. Allied planes died, German pilots died. Within 2 weeks, every lost Allied aircraft had been replaced. The American aviation industry alone was producing over 8,000 aircraft per month. For the Allies, Bodenplatte was a bad day. For Germany, it was the end. After January 1st, 1945, the Luftwaffe could still fly, but it could no longer fight. Major Gerhard Backhorn, one of history's highest-scoring aces with over 300 victories, survived Bodenplatte, only to watch his unit shredded by both friendly fire and Allied defenses. Years later, he said that January 1st, 1945, was the day he knew Germany had lost, not because of the casualties, but because of what they revealed. A command so desperate, so fractured, so dysfunctional that it shot down its own pilots. Bodenplatte worked tactically, it failed strategically. The Germans achieved surprise. They burned hundreds of aircraft. They disrupted Allied operations, briefly. But none of it mattered because the cost was unsustainable. The Luftwaffe bet its last hand and lost the only thing it couldn't replace. It wasn't just a military failure. It was a symbol of a collapsing system defined by destructive secrecy, chaotic coordination, and a fatal misunderstanding of industrial reality. Here is the grim teacher that Bodenplatte leaves behind. Resources matter. Attrition matters. Understanding what your enemy can replace and what you cannot is the difference between tactical wins and strategic suicide. So now the question, could Bodenplatte have succeeded under different circumstances? If the flak had been warned, if timing or target selection had changed, or was the Luftwaffe already too depleted for any single operation to save it? That's the debate. If this shifted how you see the final months of the Luftwaffe, drop your thoughts below. And thanks for watching.